Okay, so welcome to Aesthetics and Theory of Communication. This will be our very brief first week of class, but I did want to get everybody together before the holiday in order to introduce everything and get us started. So really appreciate you guys joining me today. This is a really good turnout. I haven't had this big of a go-to session in a while. So let's see. So as I said, I like to take some time to introduce the course and give an idea of what it is all about, because I find that a lot of times my students come into this course really not knowing what to expect, not knowing what this is going to have to deal with. So just to get us going, what in your mind does the word aesthetics refer to? What does that word mean? And by the way, you're welcome to type in the chat area. I do keep up with that, but if you do want to unmute your mic at any point and ask a question or a comment, you're welcome to. I just like to keep the mics muted to avoid background noise during the class. So, any thoughts on the word or the meaning of the word aesthetics in any context? Okay, and Amanda says, to me, it means the feel of something. And Regina adds, the aesthetics are the elements that make a piece attractive, such as symmetry. And Jesse says, visually pleasing. Okay, those are good responses, and all of you are on the right track. The word aesthetics is used in casual conversation to mean a number of things. It might mean a particular style or look, say like a Southwestern aesthetic. Or you might say something is aesthetically pleasing, which usually means it is attractive or you find it beautiful. And in fact, the term comes from a branch of philosophy, specifically the philosophy of art, that dealt with what made something beautiful, what it was the study of, as the definition here says, the sensory and emotive values for the purpose of appreciating and creating art or beauty. So as artists would explore what was found attractive and why different things would be found beautiful. Both of the pieces that I have shown on the slide here are considered classic works of art, but obviously very, very different styles and not what everyone would consider to be beautiful. The Jackson Pollock painting on the left is very abstract, more modern style, and the Monet painting on the right is a little more approachable, a little more easily appreciable as a landscape with attractive colors. So obviously there's some subjective aspects of what is considered beautiful. However, we are living in our modern age and we're studying media, and it's important for us to have a more measurable and more predictable means of talking about aesthetics. And so that's where the world of applied media aesthetics came about, because we don't want to rely too much on subjectivity. We want to know how our audience is going to respond to the media that we put out into the world. So now we've changed the definition to a process in which we examine a number of media elements, how they interact, and the perceptual reactions to them. And so, Regina, you see you are on the right track with mentioning the elements of attractiveness. But what's fundamentally different with this definition from the old philosophy of art definition? So, for the purpose of appreciating and creating beauty now becomes perceptual reactions. So we're no longer specifically limited to focusing on beauty. We're looking at perceptual reactions in a broad sense. So it could include very positive reactions. So it might include finding something pleasant and beautiful, but it might also be repulsive or ugly or even disturbing. If we know what can evoke those kind of feelings, then we can plan those media elements to best support the message we are trying to convey, right? So if you think about the media that you consume, whether it's a movie or a TV series or commercials or even advertisements in the newspaper, every piece of that has been carefully arranged and selected to evoke the kind of reaction that media creator intended. You're trying to communicate a message, and so you have to figure out how to best communicate that, and including the feelings associated with it. So things like the imagery that is selected, the wording that is used, the colors that appear within a particular media piece, even in richer media like movies, the musical score and sound effects play a part in setting that tone. And none of that is left to chance. And I'm going to say that again and again throughout the course. Nothing is left to chance, because everything should be very deliberately chosen and very deliberately planned to achieve the specific goals that we set out. So that's what this course is going to be about, in a sense, is looking at some of those factors, those different elements, and how they interact with one another, and really thinking about how you can plan those elements to bring about the impression that you want to create. But also, I just want perhaps an even bigger takeaway from the course is that I want you to just start thinking along those lines and looking at media with a critical eye and asking, why did they do it that way? Because if you develop that habit, then you will be better informed when you do your own media creation and planning. So this is going to be very much a foundational course. It's the stuff that we cover is not specific to a particular media, so it's not just print ads or video or web design or any particular discipline, but it can apply in many of those contexts. So regardless of what specialization you're hoping to go into, look at these ideas that we cover this month in a very abstract way and think about how you can apply it in your work. Are there any questions so far? Any comments or thoughts that you'd like to share? Excellent. Yeah, so, and again, feel free to jump in at any time. I do pause from time to time for questions, but otherwise I just kind of barrel ahead full speed. But if you do have questions or comments, feel free to add them. So taking a look at how we're going to approach this. So we do have 4 weeks, so there's only so many different topics we can cover. So I boiled it down to some essentials that I felt were beneficial to you and all the classes ahead, and also weren't redundant to the stuff that will be covered in those later classes. So what we have is a series of topics, starting with visual storytelling. So that's a continuation of the storytelling ideas that you started in new media tools, but looking at that from a visual standpoint. So we're going to talk about the choice of imagery and how that combines with words to create a story. Week 2, we're going to go explore color, specifically color theory, which is the formal study of how colors interact and the kind of visual energy that they can combine to create, as well as color psychology, which is more of the emotional connotations or symbolic associations we have with different colors. And we'll look at how that's been used in media. And then in week 3, we'll talk about typefaces and visual hierarchy. And visual hierarchy is the idea of prioritizing where your viewer's eye goes first. So giving emphasis to particular locations or objects so that it creates sort of a guided experience. So these are the topics that we'll cover, and you'll notice that in each week there's a consistent set of activities. So week 2, the exploration activity is due, or Tuesday of each week, the exploration activity is due. And that involves some readings, usually some video lessons, and then a short activity to help you kind of explore those ideas. Thursdays, instead of the analysis activity that other classes have, I have incorporated Photoshop practice. We are going to be using Adobe Photoshop, so if you have not installed that software yet, make sure that you do. You should have the Adobe Creative Suite as part of your technology package, and if you haven't received that or if you have trouble installing it, give FSO support a call and they can help you with that. So Thursdays, there's Photoshop practices. I've built this with absolute beginners in mind, so we start from the basics and work up. So starting off with just things like adding text to a photograph and manipulations like cropping and some basic alterations. Moving into changing the color, so color correction in week 2. Week 3 is more complex photo manipulation, so adding things to a photo or removing things from a photo. So it kind of goes along with the topics that we're exploring. And then on Sundays of each week, there's the mood board projects. And I'm going to explain exactly what the mood board project is in a moment, but it is in simple terms, it's a way of planning a design project. So it's sort of the brainstorming aspect of coming up with a design project or the art direction and creative direction. And then at the end, all these elements come together. So all of this planning you've done with your mood board, you will then use your Photoshop skills to actually create that design that you've been brainstorming and formulating. And you'll apply all of these topics in that final design. I'm sure there's still some question marks as far as the mood board and possibly other things that I'm going into the mood board in more detail now, but are there any questions on any of this breakdown? Very good. So let's talk for a minute about mood boards. Has anybody heard of a mood board or ever used a mood board? No? Has anybody ever done a vision board, which is sort of a more of a personal kind of, I'm not sure what you would call it, kind of envisioning your future plans kind of activity. But a mood board is a way of planning a design. It originated with interior designers actually, where they would collect photographs of ideas things like fabrics or textures or colors or furniture arrangements that they liked, and would use that as a way of inspiring new ideas. And then graphic designers adopted it as well. And this is kind of what a typical mood board would look like. And it looks like a collage, and that's really what it is in part. Whoops, let me back up. As graphic designers adopted it, and web designers as well, it became this way of, just like with interior design, collecting design ideas and inspirations. Kind of like if anybody uses Pinterest, I'm sure you'll be familiar with that idea of collecting visual inspirations. But we're going to use it in a very directed way. So instead of just collecting things we like, we're going to collect things that are aimed at a specific purpose or a specific project. This is the image I have here is one that I found online, and this is just a typical mood board. Oftentimes they are a single page. We're going to have a little bit more extensive one, and they're really very freeform. You can, in practice, you can put anything you want onto a mood board. Our mood board is going to be a little bit more structured, so we're going to build it week by week. And what a mood board is often used for is to share with collaborators. Say if you are working with a client, you can share your ideas with that client to get the temperature, sort of see how they're responding to your ideas before you really put any work into it. You don't want to dedicate time and energy and money towards a project if it's not going in the direction that your client is going to like. So this will let you share that with them from the start. So if you used something that was online, say if you were mood boarding using a Google drawing, for instance, you could share that with them, get their input, and then change the direction based on their feedback. So it's very collaborative. And also if you are working with a design team, say if you were a project manager and you had a team of graphic artists or web designers working with you, you could all share this to get your input or share your vision on the creative direction for this project. So that's really the idea behind a mood board. And this will come up again. Actually, I believe Emily Ray uses mood boards when she teaches the web design course. So you'll see this technique used again in a different way. I'm using a very structured approach to this mood board since this is a new concept and I have a specific purpose for it. So we're going to use the pages template that I've provided for your mood board. Typically, you would use something online that's sort of cloud-based to share, so that you can more easily collaborate. But for this month, we're using the pages template, and it looks like this. So you see it's very similar. Yeah, Emily Ray is pretty awesome. I just saw your comment, Jennifer. A very good instructor. Our design project this month is going to be a visual representation of your mission statement. So in your, I believe it was in the introduction course, Introduction to Media Communication, at the end you wrote a personal mission statement, and it was sort of your direction for your career, for your life in general, for what you value and what your definition of success will be. So now the challenge will be, how do you represent that visually? How do you capture that, the meaning and the emotion behind that in a visual form? And this is going to be a bit of an experiment to see, how you go about that. So that's what you're going to use your mood board to plan and brainstorm. So keep in mind that the mood board is not a final product unto itself. It's a tool for planning and visualizing. The first step we're going to do is to come up with a design idea. And that's this, if you look at the mood board template, it'll be that little column on the left. You'll just describe how you see how you see this coming about, what approach you'll use to visualizing the concepts in your mission statement, or your personal mission statement. So communicate this to me as if I'm completely uninitiated, in which I am. I don't know your mission statement. So if you were communicating this to a team member, how would you describe your idea, your visual idea? So give us a synopsis of that there, and then you're going to collect images. Since this is a brainstorming tool, we're not really concerned with copyright violations, because you're not going to use these images in any finished design. These are strictly inspirations. So you can use Google Image Search in this case. This is probably the only instance you'll be allowed to use Google Image Search to collect visual media because of copyright concerns. So pull down a series of images that you see supporting your vision for that design, how you're going to visualize your mission statement. These can be things like imagery that's similar to what you have in mind, or textures, or colors, or typefaces, and so forth. Just general themes that you want to incorporate. And as you collect these, put these in the space provided on your mood board, and comment on them. Communicate what is it about that photo that speaks to you. You can group them, like this student has done, into categories like concept, illustration, texture, color, and so forth. Or you can just have a general collage with little notes attached to each image. And she actually has that here too. These are comments in the Pages software that would open if you click these. So think about this as if you were working with a design team, even though in this case you are your own design team. And Amanda, to answer your question, it could be anything that you see connecting to your mission statement. Images of any, it doesn't have to be people, it can be objects, ideas, conceptual things, symbols, and so on. It's completely your creative direction. And you can use idols, yes. It is your vision. So that is all up to you. But the idea is that you're communicating your vision to me as your collaborator. So this is the week 1 component, and this is going to be done in stages. In week 2, our focus shifts to color. So now you're going to pick a color scheme, and this is going to be based on your developing knowledge of color theory, your understanding of color psychology, and relating that back to the feelings and visual impressions that you want to create in your design. And so you'll assemble a color palette. And the number of colors you use is up to you. The combination of colors is up to you. But I wanted to see this based on the principles that we've explored. So talk about the color relationships that we'll get into next week, and in very specific terms when you describe your palette. And also, and I want to point this out because there's something else we're doing as you're developing this mood board. Not only are you creating this one design, you're also setting the style for your personal brand. So, this could be you picking the color scheme of your personal brand identity. You think about Coca-Cola, for instance. It has the pretty iconic red and silver cans. Or what else has some pretty recognizable colors? UPS, the delivery service has the gold and brown, right? It's part of their brand identity. So you, in effect, are creating your own brand identity through this activity. And I believe that Jacob Kaplan, who teaches the graphic design course, will actually revisit this and allow you to work with these ideas some more. So yeah, and McDonald's, yes, the golden arches. That's a perfect example, Amanda. So you'll create these colors. You'll pick these colors that will be incorporated in some way into your final design, whether it's a logo or just the typeface, the type that you use, or even if you alter some of the colors in the images to match these colors. It's your creative vision. So this is just all planning. I just want to see you putting thought into the planning and aesthetic aspects of your design. Week 3 is about typefaces. It's also about visual hierarchy, but the mood board component is selecting the typeface styles that you'll use. And that's something we'll be exploring in detail that week as far as headings and body or text copy typefaces that you'll use. Think about some really iconic typefaces, like the Disney font is very recognizable, as is the Coca-Cola font. And these become part of their brand identity as well. So this could be another aspect of your personal brand that you're establishing. So all these factors are going to be planned in your mood board. You're putting some thought into those prior to doing your actual design. So this is all groundwork. So that by the time you get to week 4 and you do your final design, you've thought of all these factors and you can start assembling the pieces. So this student, this is actually a project from about 2 months ago. If we go back, and I'm going to back up a bit, and you look at some of these images, you see the person standing on the ledge. You see the exact same image in this case of the wood texture, the pier, the colors, the typefaces, all that's represented here. It's all come together. The person standing on the edge of the pier, you have that rough wood texture, the typefaces are here, the colors are there. So it's all come together, and that's what this mood board is all about. Say if you were working on a web design, you would start with a mood board to get some of these factors planned, and then only once all that's decided on, begin work, because again, you don't want to spin your wheels and use up budget working on something if the creative direction isn't set, and that's what we're doing here. So this is her design idea, was that she wanted a feeling of authenticity, and she felt that the natural wood grain was part of that, and the very earthy colors, and there was sort of that idea of the taking risks and taking a leap of faith, and that's where the standing on the edge idea came into play. And so you see some of that represented in the title, Take the Leap, even in some of the subtitles or topics represent that, and the visuals embrace that as well. So that's kind of the direction we're going with this. Any thoughts or questions on the mood board project and how that's going to work? Okay, Jana, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. For the Photoshop practice, you don't have to have a short description. I need to, someone else asked that same question, and I need to look at my instructions to make sure that I don't have anything left in there that I didn't intend. But no, you don't need to include a description. It should be a visual story, so words and images combining to tell a story. And then you'll post that to the discussion board. And Dakaya, is that correct? The mood board template is provided with the assignment. Yay! So I'm glad I got that one right. Sounds like that's unusual for us to get it right. Yeah, but you'll find the pages template attached to the week 1 mood board project. So take a look, and you should find that there, and you can download that. And as you're working with the mood board, you'll turn in the same mood board each week with new parts added. So keep, you won't be starting a new document each week. You'll be turning in the same one, just with the new information provided. Also, and I want to say that my approach to grading the mood board is a little different because I allow you to make corrections. So if you turn in the week 1 mood board and I give my feedback, if you make revisions based on that feedback, when you turn it back in for week 2 with the new material, I'll look back at week 1 and see if those changes have made, and you can earn back up to 10 points on that score. My feeling is that learning is an active process, and so grading should also reflect that. And instead of a one-time judgment, I want it to be a chance to take that information, incorporate it into what you know, and then grow from there. So that's my thought. Sometimes I'll miss changes that are made. So if I do miss any of the changes and you don't see me go back and revisit your grade, be sure to give me a poke and let me know. So that's the mood board, and if any questions come to mind, let me know. That's going to be our major project for the month, and it runs throughout. As I said, it does come in stages, so you'll build it up one bit at a time. And each week reflects the topics that we are covering. So, which brings us to this week's topic, and that is visual story. There's a really good short Linda lesson that you'll be looking at this week, and it talks about what a visual story is and how you can build a story using very simple combinations of words and images. So it doesn't have to be a full-blown narrative. The viewer, in most instances, will assemble the pieces and kind of infer the story themselves. You just kind of give the clues. Regina, there's a word, or no, a pages document attached to the mood board assignment, and you'll download that, and that's what you're going to use for your mood board. And then you'll upload that each week to FSO to turn it in. Nope, that's it. A lot of times the mood board will be online, so it'd be something that you share online, but for this class, it's going to be the pages document. Okay, no problem. So a visual story is told through the combination of words and images, and both of those components should work together to tell the story in ways that neither alone could do. So take a look at this image, and this is from National Geographic Kids, and it's this magnificent cavern with all these amazing natural formations. And just looking at this, we would, it would certainly be a natural wonder, but there's not really a story there until they add the here I come, ready or not speech bubble. Now suddenly there's a story. It is a game of hide and seek in this incredible environment, and that would be quite a game of hide and seek. Has anybody had a chance to look at the Linda lesson yet on visual storytelling? And if so, could you tell me what are the two of the major components that go into a story that she talks about, or the essential components? Okay. So actually I can't remember the presenter's name. It might be Stacy. But some of the basic components that are required are a protagonist, right? So you need a character, a main character, and a story problem or a challenge in order for there to be a plot. So if you look at this image with the hide and seek game, who's the protagonist in this case? We don't really see anybody. Okay, so you have that character who is the unseen person saying, "Here I come," and then who are they talking to? Someone else in the cave, right? Okay, and the person's hiding. And in this case, and in some cases, you'll see we are the protagonists, like we are the characters. So if you this with the perspective of this photograph, it kind of puts us in that cave, doesn't it? And we can kind of picture ourselves as being the person hiding with the person hearing the voice saying, "Ready or not, here I come." And so very often you'll be able to draw your viewers in using that method by making them a part of the story, making them the character in the story, and it creates a more personal impression that way. So protagonist and story problem. These are some ads that I've pulled off of the We Love Ad website. Typically, these go-to sessions will be on Wednesday, and I'll have looked at your exploration activities by then. And usually, I try to use some of your examples in my go-to, so we can talk about them some more. But this week's a little out of order. But looking at some of these examples, here we have a little visual story involving vegetables. And the tagline is "Found guilty for perfect execution," which is a little bit grim. You have these poor mushrooms who have apparently been taken by the indigenous vegetable people and are about to be executed, which in this case is sort of a metaphor for being cooked, as we do with vegetables, and so it's sort of a play on words with cooked to perfection idea. And I'll get your input on this one. And hopefully you can see this one clearly. I'm not sure how big it is on your screens. What's the story that we're experiencing here? So what would be the story problem, and who is the protagonist? Okay, so the guy is saying that the child is the protagonist. And the major clue to look for when you're deciding, figuring out who the protagonist is who is it speaking to. And the message here is decide if your child deserves them. So this is probably another case where the viewer is put in the place of the protagonist. The problem is being posed to us. What's happening is this child has scratched very complex mathematical formula into the side of this classic muscle car. So very pristine paint job that has been completely defaced, but in the process has done this incredibly impressive feat of mathematics. So it's sort of, do you punish them or do you reward them with these little chocolate treats that the advertisement is for? So another instance where we are put in that position, and it's in this case, it actually poses a challenge directly to us. And a lot of times you can do that by posing a question or actually describing a problem. So it's a call to action. Decide if your child deserves them. So it's a way of personally engaging us. And we see this a lot, especially on social media with the clickbait style advertising, where it poses a question and then we want to know the answer, or it gives us a hint of something interesting, but we can only find out the answer by clicking through and reading the article. It's the same idea. It's that mental challenge that plays on our curiosity and our natural inclination to respond to this kind of challenges. Choice of imagery is essential with a visual story. You want to give a clear indication of the situation, but that's really the starting point. You also want to evoke the kind of feelings in your viewer that you want them to feel in order to support your goals. Emotion is a very powerful instrument for influencing behavior. And there's no stronger way of influencing emotion than through the use of empathy. And we see that here in this case. We are social creatures as human beings. And if you think about newborn babies, how they learn expression is by imitating, right? They're imitating the adults, imitating the mom and the dad, facial expressions and so forth. And that's something that is hardwired in our brains. It's actually called mirror neurons that reflect, kind of give us a reflection of the emotions that we see expressed to us. And in creating media, you can make use of that idea by showing the viewers the kind of emotions you want them to feel. Taking a look at this ad, you see this very stalwart-looking little dog, and it looks like prison bars. It doesn't even look like a animal shelter or a dog pound. It looks like a human prison, and look at those very human-like features expressions on his face. I can almost guarantee you this photo has been altered to make this little puppy look a little more human in the eyes and the lips and that very pouty lip, because that's going to influence the viewer. You see this all the time, with the focus on faces in order to convey emotion, because there's nothing that's going to make a stronger connection than seeing the human face. And think about those Sarah McLachlan ASPCA commercials where she's singing "The Arms of the Angel" and the little sad animals are displayed. Because we look for faces, we look for expressions. It's just part of our nature. And it doesn't even matter if it's not a human face, we'll still apply human emotions to what we see, even if it's the faces in the wood grain or in the clouds that we think we see, we'll still apply that. So, so this is a really useful technique, something that you can leverage in your own work as well, especially if emotional connections are part of the goal. So the message here, he may be small, but you should see his heart. He has such a big heart, this little doggy. And sometimes a visual narrative is literally a story that's unfolding. A plot is unfolding. There's something very strange going on here. Obviously, it looks like there's been a murder committed, but that's not regular red blood coming out of that. The victim, it's green. So we're immediately aware that something isn't right. There's something very unnatural about this. And that's connecting in with our color psychology, isn't it? Because blood is red, and that's always a natural sign of danger. But here we are cued that this is not a normal situation, and the theme is mystery meets sci-fi. It's almost without any words, we have a narrative taking place. Any thoughts or questions so far? And that's just the basics of visual story, is to have a story problem and a protagonist. And this is what I'll be looking for in your Photoshop practice coming up, and as well as your synthesis project in week 4 is for you to be applying some of these ideas. So if that's the fundamentals of visual story, then the question is, how do you make it meaningful? And we talked a bit about that already with the emotions in the puppy's face. Some of the techniques discussed in the Linda lesson are the use of humor, poignancy, and suspense. So humor can be good. Things that are just absurd, putting your pet under interrogation from the police, is sort of an absurd situation. Again, this one, which is we already looked at, that it's completely off the wall kind of fictional setting. And take a look at this one, and I want to get your reaction to this. What do you see happening here? Yeah, it is about child labor, and it's very hard to read the small print down there. It says, find out what's behind the clothes you buy. So it has that knit sweater fabric, but if you look close, there's eyes behind there, and there's children hidden behind there, and that's use of suspense and poignancy. So we're like, we wonder, well, what are we seeing? It kind of takes you by surprise. And so, yeah, surprise is actually one of the factors that is talked about in the lesson. And it's that mental challenge. Make your viewers wonder what's happening here. They want to know more. This is a great example of that. Who would ever say this? Why would someone say this? Isn't that a horrible thing to say, that you wish your son had cancer? So you can't help but instill curiosity with the statement of this kind of such a profoundly odd statement. This is not just a visual story, this actually has an entire story unto itself. So a little bit more text than we'll be dealing with, ideally, but with that headline, you're naturally drawn in, right? You want to know more. But just if say this text story had been omitted, just seeing that with this very moving image would be enough to make you wonder, want to know more, right? There's definitely a story behind that. The story in this case is that the child has such an uncommon condition that there's practically no research or treatment for it, whereas if he had cancer, at least there would be some treatment. Just that's the backstory. But look at how that compelling headline has been used to great effect. So that's poignancy, humor, and suspense are three ways to instill an element of surprise into your visual story. It is just the idea of a visual or a mental challenge. Make your audience want to know more, challenge their expectations. And then if you want to get really clever with your visuals, you can make use of visual metaphor and symbolism. So this gets a little bit deeper. This is when you start having some room for more artistic expression. Here's an example. This is farm to table is the topic. And you see fancy silverware that ends with a pitchfork. And that's a visual metaphor. It's the metaphor of farm to table. However, there's not really a story here. This I would say is not a visual story unto itself. Yes, there's information present, but it's not a story. Using visual metaphor in a story narrative could be something like this. What's the situation you see here? Right, Jesse says the soldier is reading a letter from a loved one. And this is the ad is for the Italian Post. And the title is Never Alone. So, right, it makes him feel that like she is with him. And so that's represented with her there with her arms around him, even though he's out in the trenches. It looks like World War I in the cold. So it is that visual metaphor. It gives him hope, it makes him feel like he is not alone. And another really good one, I realize that a lot of my visual metaphors are very serious topics. I don't really have many lighthearted visual metaphors, unfortunately. This one says close the tap while brushing down here. And it's very hard to see the text on this one. That would be my main criticism. The text on the mirror up here says, it takes her 2 hours to get what you waste in 2 minutes. So you have her, the young girl, looks like she's from a third world country, holding a basin over her head, and that's kind of transposed over the sink with the water running while we brush our teeth. So kind of makes you think, makes you realize that we have this is communicating obviously to someone who's in a society where there is abundance, that you should be aware of those in greater need and not be wasteful. And this is one of the most powerful visual metaphors I've come across. Again, very serious topic, and that is of child abuse. But in this case, it's verbal abuse. So it's talking about how words can hurt, and the words are given physical form. And yeah, verbal abuse does hurt. Of the words take the form of this hand that is grabbing the child by the throat, and it's made up of these hurtful sayings and names and so forth. And what do you see? Use of that sense of empathy, that expression on this child's face. It's kind of heart-wrenching, right? You can't help but feel empathy for this poor young boy. And the fine print down here, they really let the imagery talk for itself in a lot of these with the tiny text. It says, help juvenile protective associations stop all child abuse. So you see that imagery is really powerful, and they say that that old saying, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's really true, because we get most of our information from what we see. We are visual creatures, and so you can communicate a lot of emotion through the pictures that you choose to use. That last example, the child abuse example, had really no verbal component to the story at all. It was strictly communicated through the imagery. And so I want you to start thinking about that. For the Photoshop practice, I'm going to give you a set of images, which you'll edit. You'll pick one and edit it to create a story. But then once you get into the mood board, when you pick your images for the photo collage, think about how you're telling a story, how you're telling the story of your personal mission statement, and what images you would need for that. Are there any thoughts or questions on anything we've gone over this tonight? Great. Excellent. So this was my introduction to the course. Most of the go-tos will last about an hour. So if you're able to join me each week, that would be great. I always love interacting with everyone. I will post the archives each week to the announcement section of the class. But this was what I had prepared for tonight. So if everybody feels like they're off to a good start, I'm happy to let you go for the evening and for the holiday break. And I wish you all a very wonderful Thanksgiving. Is anything I can clarify before we wrap up? If not, you're free to go.